Today I'm going to show you how to make bistro-style French onion soup. Whoa! It's a lot easier to make at home than you think, and you are going to love the caramelized onions and the cheesy toast on top. I like to use yellow onions. They have just the right balance of sulfurous onion flavor and slight sweetness and savory taste. When you cook them down, they're gonna become super tender and just melt in your mouth. We need about 2 pounds of onions, and we're going to peel and then chop them. So I like to start by cutting off the top of the bulb, just a little slice, and then turning it around and getting this root end. But you want to keep it intact so that when you cut the onion in half, it doesn't fall apart. Okay, so we're gonna cut the onion in half like this. And then just peel off the skin. Now we're going to cut them into 1/4 inch thick slices. This is going to ensure that there's some structure left and a little bit of bite, but it's going to melt down nicely in the pan. Now that the onions are cut, let's head over to the stove. Heat a large pot or Dutch oven over high heat. Melt 1 tablespoon of butter, and then add 1 tablespoon of olive oil, 1 teaspoon brown sugar, and 1/2 teaspoon of salt. Stir to combine. Add in the 2 pounds of sliced onions and stir to coat. Sauté and stir frequently until the onions begin to soften and lightly brown, about 5 minutes. Reduce heat to medium and cook the onions, stirring frequently until evenly browned, about 20 to 25 minutes. To make an amazing soup base, the secret is patience. Gradually cooking the onions is going to allow the moisture and sugars to rise to the surface, creating deeper flavors. I also like to add a little bit of brown sugar to accelerate the caramelization process. Once the onions are done caramelizing, add 1 tablespoon of garlic and sauté until fragrant, about 30 seconds. Add 1 cup of wine to deglaze the pan. Stir to scrape any brown bits on the bottom. Increase the heat to high and allow the wine to boil and evaporate, stirring frequently, about 4 to 5 minutes. Deglazing the onions with some red wine is going to dissolve any of these nice caramelized bits that are found in the bottom of the pan so that we can incorporate it into the soup. Also, we're going to let the wine evaporate so that we get those nice oaky tannins, fruity flavors from the wine without it tasting boozy. I recommend using a dry red wine. You can go French like a Bordeaux or Beaujolais, or if you have like an Italian wine like a Cab, it works really well too for the soup. It smells really good. Add 1 quart of beef stock, 3 thyme sprigs, and 1 bay leaf. Bring stock to a boil, cover, and reduce to a simmer over low heat, about 30 minutes. While the soup is simmering, we're gonna go ahead and prepare the bread topping. I like to use a nice crusty bread like a French loaf or a French baguette. I'm gonna actually slice both of them because it's always nice to have choices, especially when it comes to carbs. We're going to cut this into 1/2 inch thick slices. And since this loaf is thicker, we're just gonna cut it straight down. You're going to want to cut about 8 slices because depending on the size of the bowl, you might need 1 or 2 pieces to put on top. Now, if you use a baguette, we're gonna want to cut it on a bias, which means on an angle. That way, it actually fills to the edges of the bowl. Now, before we add this to the soup, we're going to broil them on high heat so that we can toast the top on both sides. It's gonna take about 3 to 5 minutes until both sides get golden brown. The reason why we toast the bread is so that the surface gets nice and dry and crunchy, so that when we add it to that liquid soup base, it's not gonna get soggy, especially when we broil the cheese on top. For this recipe, I'm gonna use Gruyère cheese from Switzerland. It has a nice slight sweetness, a nutty flavor, and firm but shreddable texture. And as you can see, it grates pretty easily. When we add it to the top of the bread, we're gonna wanna get that nice gooey cheese melt. Man, grating cheese reminds me of doing my master's thesis in college. I don't know if you know, but I studied dairy science, and my thesis was about cheese ripening. Something I learned in school is that the longer the cheese ages, the more dry but flavorful it's going to get. So for this recipe, we want something that's going to be moist and gooey so that it spreads. So you want to find a cheese that's about 4 to 6 months in age so that it has that moisture still, but has a lot of flavor. We need about 1 cup of cheese for this recipe. And if you can't find Gruyere, that's okay. Swiss also works really well, provolone or Gouda, and even a smoked Gouda would be even better. Discard the thyme sprigs and bay leaf. Season the soup with salt and pepper to taste. Okay, now we're gonna portion the soup. Make sure you use thick ceramic bowls that are oven safe. These are actually 24 ounces in size to make 2 soups, because I'm gonna make sort of like an entree portion for me and Jason, but you could also use 12-ounce bowls, which is gonna give you 4 portions. Okay, just ladle some inside and make sure you get lots of that nice caramelized onions. Just fill it up, making sure you leave some space for the bread to go on top. So I have about equal amounts of the soup in each bowl. Now we're gonna add some toast on top. I'm gonna go with the larger French loaf because I like the crispy crust. And extra is always better. Okay, and now the cheese. So just evenly distribute the cheese on top. Oh man, I can't wait till we broil this. It's gonna be so good. You really can't go wrong with cheese and bread. Okay, these look good. We're going to broil these about 8 inches from the top of the broiler until the cheese melts and it's a little bit of a nice golden color. About 5 to 6 minutes. Wow, these look so good. Trust me, you're going to want to eat this right away so that the bread doesn't get soggy and so the cheese is still nice and melty. Right before serving, I like to just add a little extra garnish, maybe some freshly cracked black pepper and some fresh herbs like chopped thyme, maybe some chives or parsley. For a complete meal, I would serve this soup as an appetizer to go along with this classic French dish right here. I hope you enjoyed learning the science behind French onion soup, and if you did, please give it a big thumbs up. It means a lot when you do. See you in the next video. Melty cheese. Really good.